There was no screaming, no dramatic speech, and no defiant glare at the cameras. There was just a flash of extreme tension in a tightened jaw and the heavy, suffocating silence of a man who realizes he has just walked into a trap. What you saw on the news was Prince Harry leaving the High Court, but what you were actually witnessing was the precise millisecond a multi-million-pound gamble collapsed in real time. Harry stormed out of that building expecting to be the hero of his own story, a crusader winning a war against the media. Instead, he walked straight into a legal slaughterhouse. The doors closed behind him, sealing a verdict that didn't just reject his demands, it humiliated his entire life strategy. He walked in looking for healing, expecting the British legal system to treat his trauma like currency, just like Oprah did. But he forgot one brutal, unchangeable truth. The High Court does not trade in tears. It trades in evidence. And when the judge delivered his ruling, the quiet disintegration of hope in that room was absolute. Do not click away, because while the mainstream media is calling this a setback, we are calling it what it really is, a financial bloodbath. In the next few minutes, we are exposing the time bar trap that Harry's expensive lawyers completely missed, the staggering bill he now has to pay to his worst enemies, and the secret story of how Prince William solved this exact same problem years ago without losing a single dime. Harry wanted a war. He got one, and now he has to pay the bill. To truly understand why Harry stormed out with such a thunderous expression, we have to look at the room itself moments before the final judgment was read. In high-stakes litigation, the verdict isn't always delivered in a speech. Sometimes it's delivered in a glance. According to sources inside the courtroom, there was a specific heart-stopping moment that signaled the collapse of the entire case long before the judge finished speaking. It happened during a pause in the proceedings. The atmosphere was thick, heavy with the weight of millions of pounds and decades of public anger. While Harry sat there, perhaps visualizing his victory, his legal team saw something else entirely. Witnesses described it as a quiet shift in the air. It wasn't a shout. It was a subtle cue, a tightening of fingers on a mahogany desk, a brief, terrified exchange of eyes between the top barristers. One of the senior lawyers leaned in just slightly. No notes were passed, no folders were opened. Just a look, and then a glance downward at the table. In the coded language of the courtroom, that look meant one thing: it's over. Why did they know? Because moments earlier, the presiding judge, Mr. Justice Foncourt, had asked a question that cut through all of Harry's emotional testimony like a surgical scalpel. Harry had spent hours talking about betrayal, about ethics, about the cultural sickness of the tabloids. He wanted the court to weigh the morality of what happened to him. But the judge didn't ask about feelings. He asked about timing. He asked a technical, dry procedural question about dates. Specifically, why are we hearing this now? That was the moment the oxygen left the room. Harry looked down, described by onlookers not in defeat, but in total disbelief. He realized that while he was fighting a moral crusade, the court was looking at a calendar. The lawyers knew instantly that the judge wasn't buying the emotional narrative. He was zeroing in on a legal technicality that acts like a trap door. The look exchanged between the lawyers was the realization that their client's need for validation was about to crash headfirst into the law. But the worst part wasn't the realization. It was what the judge was about to unleash next. We call this chapter the time bar trap. And to understand why Harry stormed out of that courtroom, you have to understand the one thing he refused to accept. The clock had already run out. In the world of high-stakes litigation, there is a concept known as the statute of limitations. It sounds like a dry, boring legal term, but in this case, it was a guillotine. Under British law, you generally have 6 years to launch a claim after you discover you have been wronged. It's a rule designed to stop people from digging up ancient history to sue their enemies. Harry's legal team argued that he was a victim of phone hacking by newsgroup newspapers, the publishers of The Sun, dating back to the mid-2000s. Do the math. We are in 2024. Harry was trying to sue for events that happened nearly 2 decades ago. By any standard legal metric, he was late, decades late. But Harry had a defense, and it was explosive. He didn't deny he was late. He argued that he was prevented from suing earlier. He stood before the High Court and unleashed a bombshell allegation that dragged the monarchy right into the mud. He claimed there was a secret agreement, a clandestine deal struck between Buckingham Palace and the newspaper executives at Sandringham. According to Harry, this secret pact was designed to keep the royal family out of the witness box. He argued that the institution had effectively handcuffed him, promising him that if he stayed quiet and didn't sue, the newspapers would apologize and pay him a settlement later at a time of their choosing. He painted himself as a prince held hostage by his own family's desire for peace at any cost. It was a perfect narrative for Harry. It fit his worldview perfectly. The palace is corrupt, the press is powerful, and he is the victim caught in the middle. He told the judge, "I didn't sue because I was told I couldn't." He pinned his entire strategy on this secret agreement. If the judge believed it existed, the time bar would be lifted, and Harry could proceed. But then came Mr. Justice Fancourt's ruling, and it was absolutely brutal. The judge didn't just reject the argument, he dismantled it piece by piece. In a ruling that spans dozens of pages, the judge effectively asked, "Where is the proof Harry produced no signed document, no written contract, no emails confirming this grand conspiracy? The only proof was Harry's own memory and vague assertions." The judge noted that Harry's testimony about this agreement was inconsistent and vague. He pointed out that even Harry's own lawyers from that era seemed unaware of this so-called ironclad deal. The judge went further. He looked at the timeline and found evidence that Harry did have knowledge of phone hacking years ago. He did consult with lawyers in the past. He wasn't a helpless prisoner in a tower. He was a wealthy man with access to the best legal advice in the world. The ruling suggested that Harry didn't sue earlier not because of a secret agreement, but because of procrastination and a lack of focus. The judge ruled that there was no factual basis to stop the clock. Harry knew he waited, and because he waited, he lost his right to fight. This is the time bar trap. Harry walked into court thinking he was fighting a moral battle about truth, but the defense simply pointed at the calendar and said, "Even if we did it, you are too late to complain about it." It is a cynical, cold-blooded legal defense, but it is entirely valid. And when the judge sided with the newspaper ruling that the vast majority of Harry's claims were time-barred and therefore thrown out the case, collapsed. But if you think losing the case was bad, wait until you see the bill. Harry stormed out of court emotionally battered, but the bruising he is about to take on his bank balance is far more severe. We call this chapter the billionaire's calculator. And to understand the magnitude of this disaster, we have to look at a specific brutality of the British legal system that Harry seemingly ignored: the loser pays principle. Unlike in the United States, where each side usually pays their own lawyers, regardless of the outcome, the UK system operates on a winner-takes-all basis. If you sue someone and lose, you don't just pay your own expensive legal team. You are ordered by the court to pay the legal bills of the people you tried to destroy. By having his phone hacking claims thrown out on the grounds of being time-barred, Harry didn't just lose the argument. He effectively handed a blank check to newsgroup newspapers. Let's look at the numbers because they are staggering. Legal experts estimate that the combined costs for both sides in a high court battle of this magnitude can easily run into the millions of pounds. We are talking about King's Counsel lawyers charging upwards of £1,000 an hour. When the judge ruled against Harry on the statute of limitations, he triggered a mechanism that requires Harry to reimburse the publisher for the cost of defending themselves against those specific claims. In a previous preliminary hearing alone, Harry was ordered to pay nearly £50,000 immediately just for losing a procedural argument. Now multiply that by the scale of this massive dismissal. Harry is potentially looking at a bill that could wipe out a significant portion of the advances he received for his memoir Spare. This financial blow reveals a disturbing aspect of Harry's strategy elitist arrogance. Harry is burning through his fortune money largely inherited from Diana and earned from trashing his family on lawsuits that legal experts warned him were risky. It paints a picture of a man who believes he can simply buy the outcome he wants. He thought he could outspend the tabloids. He thought he could force the court to bend to his will through sheer financial attrition. But he forgot that the newspaper group is owned by Rupert Murdoch's empire. They have deeper pockets, and they have better lawyers. The irony is crushing. Harry says he is fighting these lawsuits to stop the press from profiting off his misery. Yet by losing these technical battles, he is literally writing checks to the very people he hates. Every time he loses a round, he is funding the publisher's payroll. He is paying for their defense. He is paying for their tea and coffee. He is effectively subsidizing his own enemy. This is not the strategy of a prudent man protecting his family's future. This is the behavior of a gambler chasing his losses. Harry is sitting at the table doubling down on a bad hand, convinced that the next card will save him. But the House, in this case, the British legal system, always wins. And while Harry is throwing millions into a furnace to prove a point about principle, there is another royal who faced the exact same problem but chose a completely different path. A path that was quiet, strategic, and ultimately profitable. While Harry was writing checks, his brother William was cashing them. If the financial loss wasn't painful enough, the courtroom revelations twisted the knife even deeper by exposing a comparison that Harry has spent his entire life trying to escape. The contrast with Prince William, as Harry stood in the wreckage of his collapsed case court documents, revealed a secret that changed the entire perspective of this battle. It turns out Harry wasn't the only one who was hacked. Prince William was also a victim. But the way the two brothers handled the exact same injustice tells you everything you need to know about why one is the future king and the other is in exile. Harry's own witness statement submitted to support his claims of a secret agreement inadvertently revealed that Prince William quietly settled his own phone hacking claim against News Group newspapers in 2020. This happened while Harry was filming Netflix documentaries and planning his crusade. William was behind closed doors, flanked by palace lawyers negotiating a deal. The details are private, but it was confirmed in court documents that William received a very large sum of money to settle the matter. He got the payout. He held the publisher accountable. But he did it without a single headline, without a single camera, and without dragging his family through the mud. This is the tale of two brothers. William played chess. Harry played boxing. William understood that the goal was to resolve the wrong and protect the institution. He recognized that a public trial would only serve to air dirty laundry and re-traumatize the family. So he used the leverage of the crown to force a settlement, likely donating the proceeds or using them for his foundation, and closed the chapter. He won. Harry, on the other hand, chose total war. He didn't just want a settlement, he wanted a spectacle. He wanted to drag the newspaper executives into the witness box and force them to apologize on live television. But in doing so, he achieved the exact opposite of his brother. Instead of a very large sum, Harry is now paying legal fees. Instead of protecting privacy, Harry's own court filings exposed private details about William's settlement that the Prince of Wales had fought to keep confidential. Harry effectively outed his brother's strategy to try and save his own failing case. For those who value discretion and strategy, the difference is stark. William's approach represents the dignified silence that the late Queen always championed. It is the strategy of a grown-up who solves problems in the boardroom, not on the soapbox. Harry's approach represents the modern celebrity, loud, emotional, and performative. He believed that making noise was the same as making progress. But the High Court ruling proves that noise is just noise. William's quiet strategy secured justice and money years ago. Harry's loud strategy secured nothing but a bill and a public humiliation. The most tragic irony is that Harry cited William's settlement as proof that the secret agreement existed. He argued, "See, my brother settled later, so I should be allowed to sue late too." But the judge didn't see it that way. The judge likely saw a brother who acted in a timely, strategic manner versus a brother who waited until he was angry enough to burn the house down. William navigated the system. Harry tried to break it, and the system, as it always does, protected the one who understood the rules. But why did Harry do it? The answer is more psychological than legal. Why choose the path of destruction? Why keep pushing this case long after his lawyers likely warned him about the risks? The answer lies in a psychological need that the law simply cannot provide. He was looking for something that money can't buy and judges can't order. He was looking for catharsis. We call this the Catharsis Delusion. To understand why Prince Harry kept pushing, we have to look at what he was actually fighting for. Harry once called this legal battle the crusade of his life. He claimed it wasn't just about phone hacking. It was about protecting his family and his children from the same forces that chased his mother Diana down that Paris tunnel. But here lies the tragic mistake. Harry treated the High Court like a therapy session. He treated the witness box like the couch on the Oprah Winfrey Show. In the world of American celebrity media, the world of Netflix specials and memoirs, speaking your truth is the ultimate currency. If you feel pain, that pain is valid. If you feel targeted, you are a victim. Harry's testimony in earlier trials was described as raw, even confessional. He spoke about Meghan, about Diana, about trauma. He viewed this litigation as a way to heal. But the High Court of Justice is not a television studio. As our analysis confirms, this court wasn't built for catharsis, and it doesn't recognize grief as evidence. Harry walked into that room asking the very institution he distrusts to validate his experience. He desperately wanted a figure of authority, a judge to look him in the eye and tell the public he wasn't paranoid. He wanted someone in power to say, yes, you were wronged. You were watched. You were manipulated. He was seeking emotional redemption in a room designed for legal technicalities, and the system's response was devastatingly cold. The judges were measuring law, statute, and historical precedent. They weren't interested in his personal redemption. When Harry's team leaned into ethical arguments about a cultural sickness in the tabloids, the judges effectively narrowed their gaze as if to say, that's not why we're here. This is the delusion. Harry believed that the magnitude of his suffering would override the rules of the game. He thought that because his pain was real, the statute of limitations shouldn't matter. But the court proved that passion does not move the law. The legal system is designed to be detached, disciplined, and at times cold. It operates on what the law permits, not what it owes. The psychological impact of this realization was visible on Harry's face. Observers noted a recognition in his posture, a sense that the emotional core of his argument was dissolving under legal scrutiny. When the court focused on technical timing rather than moral truth, Harry looked down in disbelief. It hit him. The court wasn't doubting that harm occurred. They were doubting whether they could still care from a legal standpoint. Harry wanted a hug from the system. He got a lecture on time management. He wanted to be the hero who slew the dragon. Instead, he was told he filed his paperwork too late. This is the danger of confusing the court of public opinion with the court of law. In the court of public opinion, feelings are facts. In the court of law, facts are facts. Harry tried to cash a check written in feelings at a bank that only accepts evidence. And because of that fundamental delusion, he is leaving empty-handed. But where does he go from here? The ruling was a statement delivered without emotion and intentionally devoid of sympathy. So the crusade ends not with a bang, but with a procedural dismissal. And as Harry stands alone outside that court, stripped of his victory and facing a mountain of debt, we are left with the final haunting question. What does a man do when he realizes the world doesn't care about his truth? As the doors of the High Court close behind Prince Harry, we are left with a picture, not of a victor, but of a man standing alone in the ruins of his own expectations. He left the courtroom without a word, his jaw tight with tension. This silence speaks louder than any memoir. Harry came to London to force the system to acknowledge his pain, to get a ruling in black and white that validated his trauma. Instead, he received a procedural dismissal that felt like a shrug. The life lesson here is brutal but necessary for anyone watching. There is a profound difference between being morally right and being legally victorious. Harry may well be a victim of phone hacking, but in the real world, you cannot ignore the rules of the game like timelines and evidence just because your cause is righteous. Harry wanted the court to be a place of healing, but courts are designed to be cold and detached. He spent years and millions trying to fix the past, trying to avenge his mother, but he forgot to protect his own future. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight the dragon. It's to realize the dragon isn't worth burning down your own castle. From my perspective, this is the tragedy of a man who doesn't know when to fold his hand. He views himself as a crusader, but to the rest of the world, he is starting to look like a gambler chasing his losses. He walked out of that court into a quiet disintegration of hope, and now he faces a choice. Does he escalate to a quieter, more dangerous confrontation? Or does he finally walk away? Now, the final verdict belongs to you, the jury of public opinion. Is Prince Harry a hero fighting a corrupt system to the bitter end? Or is he a stubborn man wasting his fortune on a lost cause? Vote your verdict in the comments. Type team, fight if you think he should keep going. Type team, stop if you think he should save his money and go home. If you appreciate us digging into the legal reality that the mainstream media ignores, please smash that like button. It helps us keep the lights on and the investigations running. Don't forget to subscribe to Legacy's Edge and ring the bell so you never miss a briefing. The court case may be over, but the fallout is just beginning. I'll see you in the next one.